Okay, guys, I'm here for episode 2 of the Not So Scares of Halloween, the review series where I look at movies or television episodes or specials that are Halloween themed but are not necessarily horror movies. In fact, none of them will be horror movies, but they will be Halloween themed or just something that works for the overall theme of Halloween. So today we're looking at something that is very infamous in a lot of ways. Today's episode will be focusing on The Black Cauldron by Walt Disney. Widely considered Disney's... The Black Cauldron is Walt Disney Studios' biggest commercial flop and failure. But is it as bad as it's made out to be? Well, that's what I'm really going to be looking at with this episode about The Black Cauldron, because it's gotten a cult following since its initial release. So, sit back, relax, grab a drink if you want, because I'm about to review The Black Cauldron. After an opening narration, it basically gives the background of the story about The Black Cauldron and how it can bring basically an army of undead. We then cut to a house in a remote forest or something. It's the house of Dolben, who is the keeper of a pig called Henwin and his assistant Taryn. Taryn wants to be a great warrior, and that's all he talks about in this movie. He's sent to go feed Henwin, but Henwin starts acting up a little, out of character. So Dolben does this little thing, and we see that Henwin has a vision of the Horned King, and that the Horned King is looking for that legendary Black Cauldron. So Dolben insists that Taryn take Henwin to a remote cabin in a forbidden forest. But Taryn gets caught up in a daydream about being the greatest warrior in Prydain, I believe is where this is. And Henwin is captured by the Horned King's forces. That's when Taryn meets Gurgi, a thing that I don't really know if it's a dog or a monkey or whatever it is. It's a weird thing that has a really annoying voice, and it's comic relief. So Gurgi eventually tells Taryn where Henwin went. That's a mouthful if you say it fast, isn't it? And Taryn has this apple that Gurgi wants. So they arrive at the Horned King's palace. Gurgi tells Taryn not to go there, but Taryn goes there anyway, despite not having a means of defending himself. So, and then he gives Gurgi the apple. So inside there, the Horned King and his assistant Creeper are trying to get Henwin to show them where the Black Cauldron is. And then Taryn, being an idiot, falls down and gets himself caught by the Horned King's minions. And he does the thing that Dolben did, and the Horned King sees the Black Cauldron, but he doesn't necessarily see where it is. So, after releasing Henwin off the top of the tower to into the moat, so Henwin can go swim to safety, Taryn ends up in the Horned King's dungeon, where he regrets about what happened to Henwin, and that's when we meet Princess Elenwe, or whatever. It's a princess who we never see her kingdom at all, so maybe she's just a person who put princess in her name because she wanted to. I don't know. She doesn't even talk about her kingdom in this. She's a princess who doesn't talk about her kingdom. I would imagine if you're a princess, you would talk about your kingdom. And we also end up meeting Fluter Flam, a bard. This is starting as I'm watching this movie, this is kind of like a Final Fantasy game come to life in a way. At least the early ones where you had job classes. Taryn while he's nothing, he thinks he's a knight. Princess Eloni is, you know, what you would get with most females in Final Fantasy that are not meant to be really good fighters. And Fluter Flam is a bard, kind of like Edward from Final Fantasy IV, or the bard job class in Final Fantasy V. In fact, this plot actually makes itself pretty good for an RPG, in a way. But I'll get to that at the end. So, after Terran finds this magic sword, it allows him, Elenoi, and Fluter, or whatever, to escape the Horn King's castle. And the Horn King is kind of glad about that, because the Horn King can have Terran find Hinwin and just take him from... and then take Hinwin from Terran when Terran finds Hinwin. And then we're reunited with Gurgi as there's a fight between Elenoi and Terran, but they realize they need to work together for their greater good. Gurgi says he saw Hinwin's footprints, and they all go off, and they end up finding where Hinwin's footprints are, but they end up down this whirlpool, and they end up in the land of the Friar Folk, which are fairies, led by the King Idilidi, or whatever. I don't know most of these character names, or at least the kings of the fairies' names, because they're minor. And anyway, the king tells them where the Black Cauldron is. It's in a place called Morva. And he sends this, I guess, mechanic fairy, Dolly, to go with them to Morva. So they get to Morva, and they find out that the Black Cauldron is protected by 3 witches. So, in exchange for Terran's sword, they get the Black Cauldron. But they can't do anything with it, because the Black Cauldron cannot be destroyed. Its evil can only be stopped, and to do that, a willing soul must jump into the cauldron of their own free will. So it's basically a sacrifice kind of thing. A good-hearted, someone of, I guess, pure nature or whatever, has to sacrifice itself to the Black Cauldron to stop the Black Cauldron's evil or whatever. Well, the Horn King ends up getting a hold of the Black Cauldron and making his undead army so he can rule the world. Oh yeah, he sounds like an RPG villain, because most of them want to rule the world with some kind of weird army. So Gurgi then shows up and unties Terran, Elenoi, and Fluter. And then Terran goes to jump into the Black Cauldron, but Gurgi ends up doing it and sacrificing himself. And then the Horn King's undead army goes back to being, well, undead. Back to being skeletons. So the Horn King then and Terran have this fight. Terran knocks the Horn King into what's becoming of the Black Cauldron, and the Black Cauldron sucks the Horn King into it, and that's the end of the Horn King, which makes Creeper happy. So, and then you do have a climax where the Horn King's castle's collapsing, and Terran, Elenoi, and Fluter get out. And then Terran trades the wishes, the cauldron, for Gurgi, and then Gurgi is resurrected. So I guess the witches use the Phoenix Summon in the Final Fantasy games, because that's pretty much what that does, or Phoenix Downs, or something on that, or stuff like that. And you get your happy ending like in all RPGs, including Dalvin from a distance after seeing all this from Hinwin, saying that Terran did good. So yeah, that's the Black Cauldron. Is it as bad as a movie as this made out to be? No. It's got potential. I think the reason that this movie failed when it was released by Disney, who was known for kids movies. This will be too scary for a lot of younger kids at that time. I think that's why this failed. If they had stronger characters and whatnot, I think this could have been better, because the overall story is not bad. The overall story is not a bad concept for a movie, and it can work. In fact, the Horn King is the best part of this. The Horn King is a very good villain. Horn Kings in my opinion, one of the best Disney villains. I think he's actually really good. Even if he does fall into the traditional RPG villain kind of thing that most RPG villains are. I will say that a lot of the voice acting here, minus John Hurt, who voices the Horn King, isn't that great. Disney didn't get a lot of star power for this movie like with the Renaissance, when I started getting Broadway and just mainstream people for the voices. I would have just stuck with voice actors, but like I said, the whole Princess Aloni, when she doesn't even talk about a kingdom, so is she really a princess kind of thing? You know, I think that's just Disney putting princess in someone so the movie can have a princess, even though she's technically not a princess. She doesn't even do princessy stuff. So I get why it's considered a bad movie, because it's not that good. At least from a kid's standpoint. I think if an adult were to watch this movie, an adult, and me being an adult now, would have an entirely different viewpoint of this movie. But should you show it to a little kid? No, because there's a lot of scary images in it, and that's most likely why this failed as a movie when Disney released it. So yeah. That's my review of The Black Cauldron. A movie not as bad as it's made out to be, but definitely not good. I'll be back tomorrow with another video in the not-so-scares of Halloween. I don't know what I'll do yet. I don't plan ahead on most of these. So I'll find something Halloween-related, and I'll be back with a review of that. This will be in the not-so-scares of Halloween playlist. If you like the video, like button is down there, subscribe button is down there, and thank you for watching. Bye.